Introduce to you Warren Howell, who is joining us today. Warren, welcome. He attended First Polyphony Zoom gathering, I think, 2 weeks ago. Warren's currently a church musician at South Frankfort Presbyterian Church in Lexington. But Warren and I, well, speaking of small world, our paths crossed in my Charlotte years. When I was at Providence, for a time, Warren was at St. John's Baptist Church in that beautiful Elizabeth neighborhood of Charlotte. Isn't that the neighborhood, Warren?
Yes, it is. It is.
How long were you at St. John's?
From 2001 to 2013.
Yeah, good
12
job.
years.
Yeah, a Baylor graduate, Southern Seminary, back in the day.
Back in the day.
And originally from California, right?
Right.
Yeah. Well, Warren is working on a new project that I just, when I ran across it, and I don't even know how I discovered it. And by the way, how many of you have heard about faithelement.net? And a couple, but not everyone. Okay. Well, Warren's going to tell us about the genesis of this project, how it works, how you might even contribute. And so, Warren, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you unpack faithelement.net with us.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Doug. So Faith Element was began about 2008, my understanding, by David Cassidy, who was with Smith and Helwys, and so the Faith Element began as sort of a Bible study curriculum, kind of online, fresh and relevant, I think was the motivation there. But based on the lectionary, based on Revised Common Lectionary, and as David explained it to me, it was really supposed to kind of run concurrently with what people might be encountering in worship, but with more attention to the scripture itself. So about in the fall of 2019, I sat down with David. David is the now at the Baptist Seminary of Kentucky, and was a member at Calvary Baptist where I was, and so I sat down with David, and we came up with the idea of developing a second part to the Faith Element purpose, which was actually a worship component of that website. So in a few minutes, I'll take you there and I'll let you see what I'm talking about, how it's got two sides to the worship and then Bible study. So on the worship element, what I have done was, starting with Advent 1 in last year, so year A, came up with a resource page that would have, like you would see, it would list the themes of the day, the liturgical color, and then make hymn recommendations and anthem recommendations, which is something like you would get with like the PAM, Presbyterian USA. They have a document, a publication called Call to Worship. Also, I know the Methodist denomination puts out something called Prepare, and I think it has another name for sort of I think it's the same content, but if you're, I know plenty of Baptists that have used the Prepare. Has anyone used those have you all used those kind of things? Yeah, they're helpful. And so I put that together, and then also I included, one thing that I thought was helpful was the developing of liturgies and prayers. And even one of the things that I do in my worship planning has been to include in the bulletin, sometimes on the cover or sometimes up at the top of the page, or even in a margin or somewhere in there, little quips or quotes or poems or little snippets of content that might kind of advance the thought or the theme, give you opportunity for meditation. So I included those kind of things in my in this document as well. And so David Cassidy, being familiar with my worship planning when I was at Calvary, he knew that that's kind of what I was going to include. And so we've now made it through one whole year, and now we're getting into the year B. We finished the season of Advent, and now we're into Epiphany. And I realize that most churches that are traditionally based, they may, especially Baptists, they may come in and go out of the lectionary, but we still worship. And I've been that way. We've been that way at St. John's, and we were that way at Calvary for sure. But still, we pulled from lectionary based, or certainly liturgies, to kind of provide structure and thought to our services. So this is something that's useful whether or not you use whether or not you're adhering to the lectionary. So this might be a good point to ask questions, or I can just go straight to the document. Doug, what do you think?
I think they'll be really interested in seeing the formats of the documents.
Okay,
so I think I'd move there and then see if questions maybe generate out of that.
Sure. Okay, so these are available online, and I'm going to show you one that Sunday that's coming up at the end of. Let me see, make sure. Is this Transfiguration Sunday? Is that what you're? Let's see. Am I? This is where I want to know. Doug, am I showing you one document or two?
I just see one.
Okay, February 14 or 21?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Good.
All good.
All right, good. So what I'd like to do then is close that out and maximize this one. Sorry, you all, I'm just learning how to use this screen share feature. Okay. So this is the document for, it's available online at faithelement.net. And this is an example of what we produce for every week. And so it has the date, of course, and where it fits in the liturgical year, features the color, and then the scriptures. And hope you all can see this loud and clear on your screen. I also provide just a little snippet of a little description of what's in that passage, and other sources do that as well. I try to not just copy and paste, but I try to I read through and I try to make it my own. So sometimes that's harder to do, but anyway. And then I provide the themes that you might find in that. And as a worship planner, oftentimes it's helpful to have a theme or different themes and find those themes. And that's so useful in terms of searching through hymnary, or just kind of looking for what you want to be singing that morning, or select when you're selecting a solo or an anthem. If it can have a word that you're looking for, mystery in this case, or light, or glory, or spirit are good. And then as a worship planner, I try to, if I can get those words up front in the title of the anthem or the hymn, it's even stronger for the congregant in the pew, for them to make that connection. I provide hymn suggestions. A lot of these I get straight from hymnary.org, and I'm assuming everybody is familiar with that resource. These are linked to it. So if I were to click that each of these links, it'll take me to that hymn. I provide kind of the point at which it makes its, where it relates, which scripture it relates most to. Some of these sometimes cover several scriptures. And the way that the lectionary works is, I'm gonna come back up, there are some themes that echo between the Old Testament, or between the Hebrew Bible and the Psalms, and then the Epistle and the Gospel. So there are some of these themes echo back and forth between those. You can pick up on them. Then I provide anthems, pretty much standard anthems. I try to cover. There's no way to provide all the great anthems that are, from week to week that fit a scripture, but I can, I try to pull them out in a way that, and present them in a way that gives the user a chance to say, okay, well, I'm going to have a small choir, so that day, so I'll use a smaller, I'll use something that requires a smaller in terms of resource. I try to provide a cappella and accompaniments. I look for things that I would use with children or youth. I started this in the first year when I started, actually just focused on anthems that I personally direct and have directed and taught, because they were tried and true, and I'm comfortable recommending what I know. And over time, I realized I'm going to run out of ideas pretty quick if I'm going to do this many anthems. So I began to use other sources, one of which is the CMI, Church Music Institute. And is that in Dallas?
Yes, that's based here in Dallas, and Charlotte Croker, who at one time was on the faculty at Notre Dame, is the executive director who created this. And I would really encourage everybody to take a look at the Church Music Institute website. It's a really interesting organization.
Mm-hmm. And there is a fee to, or a subscription to access their library, but they have a very comprehensive library that's been populated by the recommendations by a number of church musicians, and it's very comprehensive. I also go to the publishers' websites and I pull these anthems out. If it's listed here, I have vetted all of these anthems. I'm not just putting anthems up there that I've not seen. I mean, I've looked at all the scores. And then I try to move this around a little bit. I've struggled over whether something is easy or moderately difficult. It depends on the choir and how hard they work yet. That I always take that, doesn't matter what the resource is, I always take that with a grain of salt, and I would imagine you would too. One of the things that I like about this opportunity is it allows me to do something which I've actually, to share with people what I've been doing for a long time, which is I've been intentional in my reading, in my morning devotions, and various things books when I'm reading. I've been intentional to actually annotate things and write in the margins, and if I'm reading on Kindle, or to highlight and save, because that's what I have used a lot of times. I have pulled up things that are helpful to me, or would be useful in a bulletin. And so usually the shorter the quote for a bulletin, the better. If you're having to read 2 or 3 lines in a worship bulletin, that gets a little dense. I think most times I like to keep it shorter than what is here. But you'll recognize for this is for Transfiguration Sunday. And so I just pulled up, and sometimes I'll do this, pull up a great hymn like Immortal Invisible, and just read this final verse here. And I can't remember which hymnal this is from, but great God of all glory, great God of all light, thine angels adore thee, all veiling their sight. All praise we would render. Oh, help us to see 'tis only the splendor of light hideth thee. So that just really picks up the theme of transfiguration. And sometimes just presenting it to a congregation without, outside of a hymnal and the structure and the versification, just those words, that poetry is adds a lot of meaning. Even if you do sing it in the context of the service, let them see it in its form as poetry. So I try to present that kind of material. Generally, this is all copyright. I try to stay away from copyright infringements. Although if it is if it is under copyright, it's okay to use. I've checked this with David, but it's okay to use. There's sort of a fair use as long as it doesn't, not the majority of your content, you're okay. So I still publish, Beekner quotes or whatever, but the writer for this, by the time I put together the scriptures and the recommendations, I learned pretty quickly that it's just going to consume all my time if I'm also writing these liturgies and these prayers. I write a few of them, but what I found that really works and what I'm most excited about is actually I've been recruiting some great writers who are filling out the rest of this document with liturgies here and prayers. So this is written. Dalen Jackson was the one who wrote the prayers and liturgies for this week. I've used some of the Polyphony members have written for us. Carrie Cannon has written. Anita Thompson in Ahoskie, North Carolina, has written. My colleague at St. John's wrote last Advent. He contributed like a candle lighting song. The Dalen teaches, I don't know if any of you know Dalen, but he is at Baptist Seminary, Kentucky, and he teaches, I think he's Old Testament. I may get that wrong, but that'll present itself. So Dalen has shared this call to worship based on some of these scriptures. I think I probably wrote this gathering prayer. I don't necessarily put my name on them. If I do, unless I write all of the prayers. So here's a Thomas Troger text. Here's a text of a Shaker song. O glorious morn, O happy day, thy precious light, thy piercing ray dispels darkness all away. All nature's on the move. Again, another compelling little quote for Transfiguration Sunday. Here's a prayer for illumination by Dalen, inspired by the gospel reading for that day. Give us eyes to behold your glory, ears to listen to your Son, and courage to follow you, even as we seek to understand. Some congregations will, want to have the word Son capitalized because it's Jesus, and so I've dealt with that myself, where I've wanted things lowercase and had people come to me and say, no, it's supposed to be uppercase. And I say, okay, but you can change all of these. And so this is a PDF, but you can copy and paste and really edit as you want. I don't know if any of you have read the book by Marilyn Robinson, Gilead, but that is a great read. And so it's full of wonderful imagery. Wherever you turn your eyes, the world can shine like transfiguration. You don't have to bring a thing to it except a little willingness to see. Only who could have the courage to see it? And so that seemed like a good thing to include. And then Dalen provided the benediction. And then at the bottom of this document is the information of about Dalen. So we've had over 25 different writers to participate, and I'm looking for more. I want to build this into something that really kind of belongs to a group of people. It's ecumenical but it's predominantly kind of moderate, progressive Baptist is a group. So this is the site, or I mean, not the site, but these are the anthems. I may pull up, see if I can share another document. So this is the first Sunday of Lent. And I'll see if I can bring this up for you. So these are things that I think Doug, will maybe send to everybody, and they can certainly have these. So this is the first Sunday of Lent. You know, I do direct music in a Presbyterian congregation, and so some of the hymns I find are not necessarily in the Celebrating Grace hymnal, and all of us are looking for things. I mean, the Celebrating Grace hymnal is a great hymnal, and I appreciated using it. I didn't use it till I came to Kentucky, but it's nice to have access to other sources as well. So I just kind of pull from different things. Here's the anthems for the first Sunday of Lent. It's a little tricky because sometimes what has happened in the publishing world is that Hal Leonard is eating everything up, I think. And so what has been published with a different, with one publication number, catalog number, is now got 1,000 different, and Augsburg went from, a simple 5-digit number, 5-digit to a long distance area code or something like that. So you can see I'm going to highlight Augsburg's, so it's a little challenging trying to be up to date, but I do try to stay up to date. If it is public domain, like this Thomas Ford, and there's a CPDL number, I try to list that as well. Many church libraries will have some of these. Choral library will have some of these in there. Does anybody I hope that you all can see some anthems that you would know on each of these, but also things that are new to you. And I've also been keeping a record of and of all this information for myself. And so as I've encountered in my work, as I've encountered literature, that I want to hold on to, I make note of it too. So the writer for these prayers is Brittany Stillwell, who is at Second Baptist Church in Little Rock. seems to be a fine congregation. And she's done a great job. So I move it around. We have writers in Texas. Let's see, Carrie, you've written, and I'm looking forward to Greg. His content is going to be coming in soon for the season of Easter, I think. And which reminds me, I post these get posted 4 to 8 weeks in advance, which is cutting it pretty close. If we were out of the pandemic, let's keep praying, and we were functioning, I think that's probably not enough time to prepare. I mean, I would myself would like to have the music in the choir's folder for 6 to 8 weeks at least. Unless it's something that they already know, but so kind of 8 weeks is my target. So I want to take you to the site of
So Warren, you're going to tell them about the modest subscription, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'll do that at the site. So I'm going to take you to, let's see, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, which maybe I've been doing that all along. So I want to go up here. Can you all see this? This is the website.
Yeah.
For Faithelement. So remember, I told you at the beginning that it has Bible study and worship planning. So on the Bible study side, they've got Doug, I think you asked me this question. At the time, I didn't know whether or not the fee for the worship gives you access to the Bible study, but it does not. They're on 2 different schedules.
Okay.
So I checked with David about that. I think ultimately the goal is to bundle them. And the reason is because this whole side, the Bible study side, is based on the same thing that the worship work is based on. So I'm going to go to this, the lectionary-based worship side, which is what I'm working on. And this is the web page for that site. And what's included, which is what I've been showing you. There's my face. All right. And then here are some of the services from last year, and I tried to make sure that we sort of covered a broad range. Each one of these is like a document or similar to the document you've seen, but in a different season of the year. As far as the fee, the subscription is about $4 a month. It's $3.99. David is good at marketing. And let's see, it's cancelable anytime. It gives you access to all of these. I can even get in there. Just be with me for a second.
We can all use your password.
What's that?
So we can all use your password.
Yeah.
Oh,
be careful. Be careful with this group, Warren.
Oh, okay.
Be careful.
Is my password
Warren.
not? Do I need to leave it?
No, you're fine. Hey,
We're friends here. All right, so I'm just going to show you right now. So here we are.
Oh, okay.
And I have a question, Warren. Let me know when you're.
Yes, go ahead, Ken.
Well, so when I was at Providence, and Doug, you remember this to a degree, at least when we were there, we were a lectionary church. We followed, to some degree, or I was given leniency to do that by the pastor at the time. I am now at a church that does not do that. Steve is a series guy, and kind of has a little bit of a, you can have lunch with Steve over that conversation about his opinion of lectionary planning and worship, but which makes my life interesting. Needless to say, this is centric on lection order, right, of the year, liturgical year,
Yeah.
the Christian year, outside of the high holy days of, Pentecost or Advent and obviously Easter and Holy Week. Let's say the passage is that passage from 2 Corinthians on a July day. That's not a part of is there a means by which I can search for this content based on the scripture reference of any one of those days that may not fall along the calendrical or the lectionary day? So can I search the content in that way?
There's not a search feature at this site. That's a great question, Carrie. And I myself, what I do in my worship planning and at churches that have been, I haven't really been in lectionary-based service churches that have been adhered to that practice, although they've sort of traced the church year. And so oftentimes I have thought, well, where is this scripture in the church year? So Carrie, basically what you can do is if you're pulling from 2 Corinthians in a different time of the year, what I always do is I consult where is that scripture used in the lectionary.
Right.
If you go to Text Week, I think it's textweek.com, there is a index, scripture index. And so you can search under that. And I don't know, maybe Vanderbilt has that as well. The Vanderbilt site is useful.
Warren?
Yes.
I have a resource that I have used in the past that I found out from my Presbyterian friend up the road. It's called Reverse Lectionary.
Oh, I don't know that. Who am I talking to? But it's not on my screen.
Randy Britton.
Okay, Randy.
Reverse Lectionary. If you, that's a website, you can put in any scripture at all. It will take you to the place in the lectionary where you can do exactly what Carrie is asking about.
Yes, that's what we're looking for. Thank you.
Because the content is wonderful. I mean, I want to utilize these responsive readings, these prayers, focus on some of these thoughts and meditations that enhance and plan and do, but an anthem.
And you can see here, each month, I just move the writers around. This is Ginger Cunningham, Bresher Cunningham, and she's up at a UCC congregation in Connecticut. Here's Brittany Stillwell. I showed you, she's written here in October, and she also wrote the first Sunday in Lent for me. So it's not, I move it around. People write and then they wait, a month or two, and then they write again. Here's Scott Harrington, another Texas person. You all know Scott out there. He's at Second Baptist Lubbock. So it's church musicians and pastors and youth ministers, teachers, just different folks.
Great, wonderful. Warren, thank you so much. So you want contributors? I put your email in the chat box. So if you would like to contribute or just like to be in touch with Warren about the possibility, email him and let him know that sometime you'd be interested in doing that. I'm sure he'd love to hear from you. We just put several other things in the chat about the Reverse Lectionary. That's cool. I never heard of that. I found other workarounds, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How many of you are in places where more or less you're on lectionary most of the time? And that means, it depends on our situation, but it's such a remarkable resource. So yeah, there are ways to work around this. And, 80% of the time, maybe more, would you say, Ryan, at Wilshire, we're on it. And then every once in a while, George will say, we're going to be off lectionary. And then, it's so that there's that free church tradition card that always trumps everything, right?
Right.
Somewhere it's a Texas thing, Doug. I think it's a Texas thing. It's
it may be.
East of the Mississippi is the lectionary world. And I don't know. Am I wrong?
It's
a little general.
In broad terms.
In broad terms.
Yeah. Kyle?
Pardon me. I was just going to say, I I can relate to Carrie, having been in Houston for 15 years. There is a Texas thing, but the narrative lectionary is where I am. That's the context where I am right now that our pastor uses, and so I'm constantly going to that Vanderbilt site. It's become my go-to.
Include that in your chat too.
Yeah, I'll type it in there again. Yeah.
Does anyone else have any questions for Warren? Warren, we really appreciate your presentation today.
Thank you all for letting me do this.
Well, and I'll just say one thing, Doug. Liturgy is it's the word of the people, right? It's in its truest form. What I appreciate about this project, Warren, is the content is us.
Yeah.
You're reaching and gathering the words, the thoughts, and the ideas of our community, broader community. But it's not somebody holed up somewhere in a publication company and they're trying to crank out some material. This is you genuinely grassroots reaching out, getting thoughts and ideas and the words of the people. Anyway, I appreciate that overall vision.
So I am looking for more writers. So you've got my email address and
Yeah.
let me know if you want.
Well, and it appears to be a really adaptable resource. You can dip in and out of it. And, to quote Robert Weber, who is no longer this side of Jordan, all worship is local. And so you are the practitioners on the ground, and you have to have the savvy and the pastoral sensibility to know what's right for your place. And that's, again, I think it's part of the beauty of this resource, that you can borrow from it, employ what works at a moment on a Sunday. And, then there may be other Sundays where you're obviously employing other resources. So, but I think it's another great tool for our toolbox, honestly.
And I am interested in also, just lastly, gathering more, musical recommendations. I'm happy for other people to kind of contribute to that part as well. I haven't figured out how I want to do that, but Carrie, I think I've reached out to you before about, kind of Easter, what would you want to do in Easter? So I'm looking for that kind of contribution as well.
Any other questions? And we'll begin to wrap things up today. Any other questions? Don't be shy.
I just wanted to thank Warren again for all the hard work, because I know it's very time consuming. And tell David that Cass said hey.
I will. Thanks.
Great. Well, again, thank you, Warren, on behalf of all of us, and I hope you'll continue to be part of the Polyphony community going forward. And folks, what a deal! I think the subscription price is very affordable, so take a look at that. As a matter of fact, I plan to do that later this afternoon.